Whispers across Blackwater Lake. The first night at the lake house, the silence felt too perfect, like someone had pressed pause on the entire forest. No rustling leaves, no night insects, just the soft lap of water against the rotting dock. I'd come alone, needing a break after months of city noise, and my uncle's old cabin seemed ideal. It sat on the edge of Blackwater Lake, a place I'd only visited once as a kid. I barely remembered it, except for my uncle's warning to never go swimming after dark. Back then, I'd laughed it off. By midnight, I couldn't sleep. The floorboards groaned with every step as I made tea. Through the wide, lake-facing window, the moon cast a long silver trail across the still water. That's when I saw the ripples. Something was moving, slow, deliberate, about 30 feet from the dock. At first I thought it was a fish, but the water was churning too much, like someone treading water. I grabbed a flashlight, but when I shone it across the lake, the surface was perfectly calm again. The next evening I heard whispering. At first I thought the wind was carrying voices, but the air was perfectly still. It came from the water, soft and urgent, like two people arguing just below the surface. I crept onto the dock, knees shaking, and called out a shaky, "Hello?" The whispers stopped instantly. Sleep became impossible. Every hour brought some new sound, the gentle tap of wet feet on the porch, a faint knock on the underside of the dock, the unmistakable creak of a door opening somewhere inside the house. I checked every room, but nothing was moved, until I found the back door slightly ajar, water pooling on the floorboards. By the third night, I was done pretending I wasn't terrified. I stacked a chair under the doorknob, turned on every light, and sat clutching a kitchen knife. Around 2 a.m., I heard splashing, heavy, frantic, and a single human-like gasp for air. Against all reason, I looked. Something pale was crawling out of the lake. Its limbs were wrong, too long, bending backward, slick with dripping weeds. Its face was featureless except for a gaping black mouth that seemed to stretch wider the longer I stared. I stumbled backward as it dragged itself toward the dock, water hissing off its skin like steam. I slammed the door and pressed my back to it, hearing wet hands slap against the wood. No screaming, no growl, just the sound of it breathing, inches away. Then, silence. Morning brought no answers. The dock bore long streaks of slime, and the lake was mirror smooth again, like nothing had ever happened. I left the house that day, abandoning clothes, gear, everything. But sometimes in the middle of the night back home, I swear I hear faint lapping water and whispers begging me to come back. The Drowned Room. When I first pulled up the gravel drive, the lake house looked harmless, almost quaint. A weather-worn cabin crouched at the water's edge, cedar siding gone gray with age, its wide porch sagging slightly toward a dock that jutted straight into the mirror-flat lake. I told myself I'd chosen it for the quiet. A week alone to read, sleep, and finally finish the sketches that had sat half-done on my desk for months. But the quiet was wrong. The moment I cut the engine, I realized I couldn't hear a single bird. The woods were still, heavy. I should have noticed that omen and left, but I carried my bags inside instead. The interior smelled faintly of damp wood and something sweeter. Old water, maybe lilies gone sour. Furniture sat draped in white sheets like the house had been sleeping. The big bay window dominated the main room, offering a view of the lake's black glass surface. I tried to convince myself the feeling crawling over my skin was excitement, not unease. By nightfall, mist curled low across the water. I stayed up late reading, though my eyes kept drifting to the window. At 12:37, a hollow thud broke the silence. I froze. It came from outside, right at the dock. Probably a fish, I whispered to the empty house, but then it came again, sharper. Thunk, thunk. A rhythm, deliberate. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen, eased open the screen door, and swept the beam across the dock. The wood gleamed slick with dew. Just below the boards, something pale floated. A log? No, too round. The log rolled lazily, and the beam caught the unmistakable curve of fingers, water-bloated and limp. I stumbled back, heart hammering, breath fogging in the cool air. When I dared look again, the lake was still, the surface smooth as if nothing had disturbed it. Morning brought no relief. A damp chill lingered through the house. As I made coffee, I noticed water pooled at the locked basement door, shimmering in a thin, rippling sheet. I forced the door open, expecting a burst pipe, but the basement floor was bone dry except at the far wall, where moisture glistened as though the concrete itself was sweating. As I stared, more water welled up, trickling down like tears. Behind the wall, something shifted. A pale blur pressed outward, the suggestion of a mouth opening in a scream I couldn't hear. I slammed the door and backed upstairs, hands shaking. That night, the banging escalated. Thud, 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 fists against wood. The lights shivered, then steadied, then shivered again. From the window, I saw a slick trail of footprints on the dock, wet, human, unmistakable, leading straight to the porch steps. I locked every bolt, but the footsteps stopped right outside. Silence stretched. I barely breathed. Then came the sound of water trickling somewhere behind me, though every tap was off. Dawn arrived like nothing had happened. No prints, no water. I dared to glance at the bay window before leaving. My reflection stood pale and wide-eyed, and behind me stood another. A figure of washed-out skin, hair streaming like black weed, lake water dripping from its grin. I didn't pack. I ran, fumbling keys, half sobbing as my car fishtailed up the drive. In the rearview mirror, the lake house shrank into the trees, its window catching the light like a watchful eye. Out on the water, ripples spread in perfect concentric rings, as though something huge had just submerged, or was swimming after me. I haven't looked at a lake the same way since. Sometimes at night, when my house is still, I swear I hear dripping water and slow, patient knocking, waiting for me to answer. The house beneath the water. I'd rented the lake house for a week, desperate for quiet. My life in the city had been all screeching brakes, endless emails, and insomnia. The photos online promised calm, a weather-worn pier stretching into silver water, tall pines swaying at the edges, the nearest neighbor 2 miles away. It was exactly what I thought I needed. The first night, the stillness unnerved me. The lake was a black glass, the kind of dark that swallows moonlight whole. Inside, the old wooden floors shifted with each step, as if the house itself was exhaling. I kept telling myself old homes creak, lakes settle, wind rattles, perfectly normal. Around 2 a.m., a splash yanked me from half-sleep. It wasn't the rhythmic lap of waves, but something heavier, deliberate. I peered through the bedroom window. Ripples pulsed outward from the dock, though nothing moved on its surface. I stared until the water calmed, telling myself it must have been a fish, though the size of those ripples said otherwise. The next day I explored the shoreline. The lake was strangely cold, colder than the air. A drowned log jutted up like a blackened finger, and there were handprints, faint, muddy, on the planks of the dock. Too large for mine, too fresh to be old stains. I brushed them away, telling myself again, nothing to fear. Night fell heavier the second evening. Rain slicked the deck and lightning stuttered across the hills. I dozed on the couch until another sound woke me. Not thunder. A low thudding, wet and steady, like footsteps across soaked boards. I sat up. The thuds grew closer until they stopped outside the sliding glass door. I froze, staring into the black. Lightning flashed, illuminating the outline of a figure. Pale, water streaming from hair plastered across its face. It was there for a heartbeat, then gone, leaving only rain and the frantic hammer of my heart. By dawn, I convinced myself I dreamed it. Sleep deprivation does strange things. But when I opened the door, the deck bore a trail of wet prints leading from the lake to the door, prints that never returned. The third night, I barricaded myself in the bedroom, piling a chair under the knob. The storm had passed, but the house felt awake, listening. Around midnight, the doorknob twitched. Slow, intentional. The chair shifted an inch, squealing across the floor. I held my breath, pressing my back against the far wall. The knob rattled harder. Something whispered, soft as a ripple on still water. My name. Then silence. I didn't sleep. At first light, I bolted, abandoning clothes and food, speeding down the winding road without glancing back. In the rearview mirror, the lake glimmered, placid, innocent, except for the figure on the dock, watching. Soaked, motionless. I've never returned. Yet some nights, far from any water, I wake to the faint lap of waves against wood and the echo of my name slipping through the dark.